Again, maybe it's not for your age, because thank God you guys have no problem. Everything is taken care of, right? Your biggest problem is if you slept 7 hours or 8 hours. Your biggest problem is you have just water or Coca-Cola with your food, right? Everything is taken care of. It's really the best years that you have. Take advantage of it. No obligations except studying Torah. However, sometimes in life, sometimes things happen that it seems to be not good, seems to be very bad, very painful. But in this week's parsha, we learned that even though sometimes painful things happen, but at the end, they're actually for the good of the person. Where did we learn that from? From Yaakov Avinu, right? Yaakov Avinu didn't have Yosef with him for 22 years. Imagine a father, God forbid, or a mother thinks that the child is dead for 22 years. You see, many of us have lost parents or grandparents or great-grandparents. It's very painful. But, because that's normal, it's natural, whatever it is, after a few years, we forget it. Actually, God gave a gift that we forget our problems. Otherwise, we couldn't live. Imagine people that survived the Holocaust. Imagine they would remember all the atrocities that the Nazis did. They couldn't continue living. So it's a gift. When it comes to bad things, God makes us forget. However, the Medrash says, when God forbid a child passes away, the parents never forget. The Medrash says that. There was actually a punishment that came to the world after the flood. So it should never happen to anyone. But you could imagine Yaakov Avinu, thinking that Yosef is dead. It was very painful for 22 years. What happened after 22 years? He found that it wasn't a punishment. He wasn't dead. Actually, it was a good thing. Not that the 22 years being away was a good thing, but something good came out of it. He came out to be the king or a second to the king in Egypt, and he was able to save the entire Jewish nation and the entire world, not just the Jewish people. So one of the things that we learn is exactly what Rabbi Akiva says. Rabbi Akiva always said, the story of Rabbi Akiva with the candle and the donkey? Everybody knows it? No? So we got to repeat it a little bit maybe. Rabbi Akiva used to have a statement that called the Avid Rachmana. Anything that God does, Letav Avid, is eventually for the good. It might be painful, but it's for the good. What was the story of Rabbi Akiva? So this is exactly with Yaakov Avinu. After 22 years, he found that it was a good thing, actually. It was for good that happened. And as you guys know, the parsha starts with what word? Vaychi Yaakov, right? Yaakov lived for how many years? 17 years in Egypt. Right? The word Vaychi, because Vaychi was his best life. Best part of his life was the last 17 years. When he saw all his kids, all his grandchildren, tzaddikim, in Egypt, and he had no worries. All right. So anyways, so we see that it was actually for the good. So let's go through Rabbi Akiva's story. I'm going to share actually a story of Rabbi Akiva with you that we saw at the end how good it was. Sometimes we don't see the good, but we see another story of the Baal Shem Tov if you have time. Why we see actually is good in God's eyes, even though we don't see the good. Story of Rabbi Akiva is in the Masechta Brachos. Ask Rabbi Eli is going to tell you which page it is. He knows the daf. I just know the Gemara. I don't know the daf. Anyway, so the Gemara says Rabbi Akiva used to travel. He had a donkey and a rooster and a candle. Why did he have the donkey? To carry his stuff. Whatever his donkey was from England, Rolls Royce. He had the best donkey in the world. Just kidding. So he had his donkey to carry his stuff. He had a candle that he used to study under the lights at nights. And the rooster was like an alarm clock waking him up. One time he traveled, and then he got to a certain city a little bit too late. So they closed the gates for security reasons. He's knocking on the door, begging to allow him to come in. They don't allow him to come in. So Rabbi Akiva always said, call David Rachman or Letav Avid. Whatever God does is for the good. So he had to go to sleep in the forest next to the city. When he was there for a short while, a lion comes and he kills his donkey. Sometime later, maybe short time later, a wildcat attacks and he kills his rooster. Then a strong wind comes. We're used to it for the past 2 days, and actually blows off the candle. So Rabbi Akiva says again, whatever God does is for the good. He didn't know what it was, but he believed it's for the good. So the next day when he wakes up, he goes to the city, he sees the gates are broken. Either an army or a bunch of robbers attacked. Many people were killed, many were taken as captives. So Rabbi Akiva says, you see, I always said whatever God does is for the good. If I would have been in the city, at the best, I would have been taken as a captive. If the donkey was alive, would make noise, they would come and investigate who's in the forest. next to the city. If the rooster was alive making noise, same thing. If they would see a candle burning, they would come and check who's in the forest. So everything was for the good. So see, actually, Rabbi Akiva had the merit that he was able to see the good right away the next day. The best example I bring for this is if somebody has to take surgery, God forbid. Whatever he has some type of a disease that he has to do surgery. It's very painful, right? But nevertheless, people pay for it and they actually wait in line for the time of surgery to come because they know they're going to have a better life afterwards. That was the story with Rabbi Akiva. So again, we have to have this emunah that everything eventually is for the good, by the way, only in our own life. If you see another friend suffering, it would be cruel for me to say, well, God does it for the good. Just take it. No. When it comes to other person, we have to be sensitive. It's only in our own lives that we have to accept it, for that something good is in there. For another person who knows it's for your good, it's okay. Suffer, no, you don't say that. God forbid. There are sometimes that we do not see the good. But actually, in God's eyes, they are good. And that has to do with the story of Eliyahu Hanavi that I'm going to share with you. You guys might know it. I was going to say a story of the Baal Shem Tov. I don't think I'll do it. Sorry. Let's just bring a story which is actually in the Medrash. The Medrash says that Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi had a merit that Eliyahu Hanavi always used to come to him. So one day he tells Eliyahu, can you please take me on your trips? So he says, no, I can't. Because I'm going to do things that are very strange to you. And you're going to ask me questions. I don't have time to answer all your questions. So he says, please, he begs him, take me. I won't ask anything. So he says, okay. So he takes him on a trip. When they're traveling, actually, they get to a house by the evening, a very, very poor house. It was maybe mostly like a hut or something. And these poor people, I think they only had like beds made out of hay. They didn't have really good beds. And the way the story says, they don't even come. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi and Eliyahu didn't have to ask them to go in there to their house to sleep. They see people walking, well, you need a place to sleep. Actually, they give their own bed to them. Either they slept on the floor, or if the bed was made out of hay, or if they had a normal bed, they slept on the hay. So the next morning when they wake up, so Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi sees Eliyahu praying. And he goes, what are you praying for? He says, well, this guy has a cow that was actually a source of his parnasa. He used to use his milk and plow the little field that he had. I prayed for the cow to die. So he was amazed why, but he couldn't ask any questions. Whether he asked or not, I don't know. Maybe he didn't ask, maybe he asked, and if you ask, you have to go back. You can't travel with me. He didn't wait for the answer. Didn't ask. They travel further, they get to a house that was actually very, very rich guy that lived there, many bedrooms. These people didn't come to Eliyahu, do need a place to sleep. They go over to them. Can we please sleep in your house? So say, in our house, no. We have a stable. It's full of hay. You want to go to sleep there, sleep there. So they spend the entire night there. Next morning, when they get up, they see Eliyahu. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi sees Eliyahu praying again. So says, what's your prayer for? He says, well, there's a wall. I don't know if it was wall of the house or wall of the yard. I'm not sure. That is about to collapse. There's a crack in there. I prayed for it to get fixed. Isn't that weird? The first guy that was nice, you pray for his cow to die. This guy that's not nice, you pray for his wall not to fall, let it fall. But he couldn't ask anything. Later on, they traveled to another city. They're going to shul to daven. In the shul, people were not respectful at all. So when Eliyahu leaves, he says, may all you guys become leaders. Then later on, they go to another shul that people were very nice. So Eliyahu says, may only one of you become a leader. So this time he couldn't, again, remember, Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi is a guy with a lot of, brains, very smart person, very godly person. He was so interested to know the reasons that he couldn't tolerate it anymore. Says Eliyahu, you know what? I'm not going to travel with you anymore. Give me an explanation and I'm going to leave you alone. So Eliyahu told him, I'll tell you. In the first house that the guy was nice, I saw there was a decree in heaven that his wife is supposed to die. But I didn't want his wife to die. I was able to pray and change the channels. Instead of his wife dying, I prayed and the cow, his property, died. The cow died. So it's actually for his good. The second guy, so that was actually a good thing. Number two, the family that didn't let us come into the house, although they were rich, if he would have to destroy the wall, there was a big, treasure under that wall. It would become even richer. He didn't deserve that money. So I prayed for the wall to stay. so he doesn't get the money. So actually, that was for his not benefit. It was actually something bad. In the other shul, that people were not nice, and I told them all you guys should become leaders. What happens when everybody thinks that he's a leader?
That he should fight. They don't
They won't stay. It's going to fall apart. Right? Have you seen? Unfortunately, let's say if you have a synagogue and or organization, two rabbis don't get along. So what happens? It falls apart. Either they split or falls apart. I've seen it. I've had the experience. I've seen that. Anyways, but again, if let's say so that's why I said you should all become leaders. That means the community is going to fall apart. But in the last shul that everybody was nice, and I said you should have only one leader. When there's one leader and people listen to him, that community is going to thrive. So in Torah, and Levi, go tell my story to people and let them know, although we're going to see strange things that don't seem to be good, right? There's a reason behind it. In the story of Rabbi Akiva was able to see what the good thing was. His life was saved. Sometimes we see that. Many times we don't see the good at all. But in the judgment of God, there is a reason for that. Right? As long as we're human beings, we got to pray for other people to have it good. Even though God has reasons, October 7th happens and Holocaust happens. God has his reason. But as human beings, we have to pray for them not to happen. And I want to just end off to prove that we got to pray for others. There was a story of the Mezritcher Magi, the student of the Baal Shem Tov. When he was alive, nothing bad, no pogroms, no attacks were happening where he lived. In the part of Europe, whatever Ukraine, when he lived. When he died, a lot of tragedies happened. So his students prayed and they fasted that it should come from Gan Eden to their dream. Why are so many bad things happening after he died? So the Mezritcher Maggid said, when I was in this world, I had very limited vision, although it was a big sadi. So when I saw there's trouble coming from heaven, decrease from God, I saw it as trouble. So I prayed for it not to happen. But now that I passed away, I'm in heaven, I see from the vision of God, and I see the ultimate good. How can I pray for ultimate good not to happen? So that's why so many, programs were happening, because we saw the good, we had vision of God. But you guys that are human beings and you see that's trouble, pray for it not to happen. So again, as long as we're in a physical body, you see troubles happening, you got to read Tehillim, you got to study Torah for the merit to get saved. Every day we have to pray for the hostages, for our brothers and sisters. But again, eventually, at the end, when Mashiach will come, God will explain how it was for our good. Thank you, people, for listening. Please be in your seats. Be in your seats. There is 8 pies. Don't worry about it. You guys are good boys in yeshiva. Yeah, we're going to bring the pies to you. Just you guys, be seated. Be seated. Be seated. Be seated. There's so much. You want to pass it up? Yeah. It's awesome. Please, but there's so much. Please get 2 or 3 slices. Give it to others. There's extra tickets. Guys, we're coming to you. There's 8 books. Hey, somebody in the back. Somebody pass it up. Pass it up in the back. Pass it up. Yeah, pass it up. Thank you so much. Can I take some french fries? Guys, there's ketchup and there's the other one. Ranch.